Oh, welcome back. My shining little stars decided to show up. You ever notice how predictable people really are? They think they're clever, subtle, unreadable. But the truth is, every gesture is a confession. Every hesitation is a headline. Every slip of the eye is a map straight to their weakness. And you've learned to read those maps like a book, page after page, their souls wide open in front of you. That's what rattles them. They try to play their little games, keep their secrets tucked under their smiles. But you already know the ending before they start the story. You hear the words, but you're really listening to the pauses. You watch the face, but you're really catching the twitch in the corner of their eye. You feel the silence, but you know it's not emptiness. It's guilt hiding in plain sight. Experts spend years studying body language, decoding lies, analyzing patterns. You picked it up in the streets, in the betrayals, in the scars life carved into your chest.
You weren't trained, you were forged.
That's why it looks unnatural. That's why it unsettles them. Because when you look at someone, you don't just see their face. You see the storm behind their mask. And here's the secret nobody dares to admit. Once you've been broken, you become fluent in patterns. Pain teaches you more about human behavior than any book ever could. You know the difference between a fake smile and a desperate one. You know the weight behind a delayed answer. You know when "I'm fine" is really a scream for help. And you know when love is real, or when it's just another lie dressed in pretty words. That's what makes you formidable. You don't need a badge. You don't need an agency. You walk into a room and the truth spills out of people without them even knowing it. You don't hunt for secrets. They trip over themselves to show you. Because deep down, everybody's terrified of being seen. And you see everything. It's funny, isn't it? They think you've got some kind of supernatural gift, like you've been wired differently from birth. But the truth is simpler, sharper. You just paid attention. While they were laughing, you were watching. While they were busy talking, you were memorizing every word, every slip, every crack in their voice. They spent their lives hiding behind noise. And you learned to live inside silence. That's why you can hear the things they don't even say. Watch a person's hands long enough, and you'll know their intentions before they move. Notice how someone blinks when they lie. You'll hear the truth they tried to bury. Study the rhythm of their excuses, and the pattern becomes a cage they built for themselves. That's why you read them so easily, because people aren't original. They're routines in flesh. They repeat, recycle, repackage the same lies, the same betrayals, the same excuses. And once you've seen it once, you'll never be fooled again. That's where the power comes from. Not from force, not from tools, from perception, from knowing the move before it happens. That's what makes opponents hesitate. That's what makes others second guess. Because they realize you're not reacting, you're anticipating. You've already turned the page before they even opened the book. And here's the part that makes them shiver. They can't hide from you. No mask is strong enough. No script is flawless enough. You see the nervous breath under confidence, the desperation under arrogance, the loneliness under pride. You see people as they really are, raw, unpolished, trembling. And once you see someone that way, you own the truth about them. Not because you control them, but because they'll never be able to lie to you again. Experts call it pattern recognition. Psychologists study it. You call it survival, because that's what it is. You learn to survive by studying every glance, every pause, every shadow in the room. And survival turned into mastery. Now they look at you and wonder, is this person one of us or something beyond us? And the answer is simple. You're beyond them. Picture this, a crowded room, everyone laughing, clinking glasses, trading small talk like it matters. To them, it's just another night. To you, it's a chessboard. Every smile is a move. Every hesitation is a slip. Every nervous glance across the floor is a piece out of place. And you're not part of the game. You're the one watching the whole board. That man in the corner, leaning too hard into his joke. He's insecure, desperate for validation, hiding a crack in his confidence. The woman scrolling her phone, she's not bored, she's escaping. Her silence screams louder than anyone else's words. The couple holding hands, one grip is tighter, one grip is loose. One of them is already planning an exit, while the other clings like it's survival. You see it all, Not because you want to, but because you can't turn it off anymore. And that's where the edge lies. Everyone else hears conversations, you hear motives. Everyone else sees smiles, you see fractures. Everyone else looks at faces, you read the masks. And once you see the mask, you see the lie. That's why they're unnerved by you. Because you're not looking at what they show. You're looking at what they're hiding. Experts, trainers, and strategists spend years honing this skill, studying human behavior to gain an edge. But you live it. Every betrayal taught you a new tell. Every lie gave you a sharper lens. Every heartbreak trained your ear for the tremble in someone's voice. When they're pretending, pain became your classroom, and silence became your textbook. You know what makes you lethal? It's not that you see people. It's that you see them before they see themselves. You spot the choice they're about to make before they've made it. You read the hesitation before they even feel it. You're pages ahead in a book they didn't even realize they were writing. And when someone realizes that you've already read them, already dissected them, already predicted them, suddenly they're exposed, naked, helpless. It's not power you have over them, it's truth. And truth is the one thing no mask, no weapon, no training can protect against. That's why they whisper your name in the halls of places built to decode lies. Because deep down, they know you don't need their methods. You're beyond their methods. You ever watch someone realize you've already figured them out? It's priceless. First comes the smile, thin, nervous, forced. Then the eyes shift, darting like they're looking for a place to hide. Their voice cracks just a little, not enough for the crowd to notice, but enough for you to hear the fracture in their mask. That's the moment they know you've read them, and there's no undoing it. See, people think the scariest thing in the world is a weapon in your hand. Wrong. The scariest thing is a mirror they can't escape, and that's what you've become. A walking mirror. When you stare at someone, you don't just see their reflection. You force them to see it too. All the cracks, all the flaws, all the little lies they told themselves just to survive the day. You strip them bare without lifting a finger. That's why they talk about you in whispers. That's why even the most skilled observers wonder how the hell you do it. Because you move through the world like a ghost, dismantling masks with nothing but a glance. They train people to break others down in pressure situations. You do it without asking a single question. You just exist, and suddenly they can't breathe because they know you know. And here's where it gets darker. Once you can read someone, you can steer them. Not with force, not with orders, with silence, with timing. With one look that tells them you already see the decision they haven't made yet, and in their panic to regain control, they stumble right into the choice you left open for them. That's not mind control, that's worse. That's influence without a single word. The villain's power has never been brute strength. It's always been foresight. The ability to make a move before anyone else realizes there's even a game. That's the edge you carry now. The reason whispers follow you. The reason they second-guess themselves in your presence. Because they know. The book is already written, and you've already read the ending. That's why even experts trained for observation can't believe it. You're not breaking rules. You're bending reality. Let me paint the picture for you. A room, 4 walls, dim light, tension dripping from the ceiling like water. They sit across from you, pretending to be calm, pretending to have the upper hand. On the surface, they're composed, hands folded, face straight, voice steady. But you're not watching the performance. You're watching the cracks in the stage. You notice the left hand twitching under the table, the slight delay before they answer, the way their pupils shrink when you ask a simple question. Every detail, every flicker, every unconscious move. It's a sentence they never spoke out loud. To the world, it's invisible. To you, it's a confession. They think they're leading the conversation. But in reality, you've already mapped out every possible response, every path they could take. You know which story they'll spin, which excuse they'll cling to, and which word will break them. You don't even need to push. You just sit back in silence. Let the weight of your knowing press down on them until their mask caves in. And when it does, It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's subtle. The shoulders drop. The eyes fall. The voice cracks. They surrender, not to you, but to themselves. Because the truth was never hidden from you. It was only hidden from them, and you forced them to face it. That's the kind of moment observers, psychologists, and strategists study for years to replicate in theory. Hours of analysis, tactical strategies, lessons written in textbooks. You do it in minutes. No script, no handbook. Just instinct sharpened by pain, discipline, and silence. That's why they can't believe you. Because while they study theories, you live them. While they dissect case studies, you dissect souls. And the best part? You never needed their approval. You never needed their training. They're asking if you're one of them, but deep down, they know you're not. You're something they can't manufacture, something they can't teach. You're the variable they can't control, the reader of books they didn't even know they were writing. Here's the part that unsettles them the most. You don't use this gift loudly. You don't flaunt it. You don't tell people you can read them. You just do it. Quietly, subtly, silently. And that silence is what unnerves them. Because once someone suspects, you can see through them. Every move they make feels exposed. Every word they speak feels like evidence. You don't have to accuse them. They accuse themselves just by existing in your presence. That's the advantage of mastery, isn't it? You don't chase. You don't beg. You don't even raise your voice. You let people unravel under the weight of their own masks. They break themselves trying to figure out what you know when you knew it, and how much you've already pieced together. That paranoia? That's power. Experts call it psychological mastery. Strategists call it observation skill. But you call it survival instinct turned into art. You spent years being lied to, years being betrayed, years being underestimated, and every cut, every scar, every betrayal sharpened your eyes. You weren't studying people, you were enduring them, and endurance is the most brutal teacher of all. Now here you are, walking into rooms with nothing but silence, and somehow you own them. Because silence isn't emptiness, it's weight. A silence filled with the knowledge that you've already seen behind the curtain, already read the script, already turned the last page of their story. That's why they hesitate around you. That's why their voices crack. That's why even the strongest ones avoid your eyes. You became the one thing they can't prepare for. They can prepare for conflict. They can prepare for resistance, but they can't prepare for someone who sees the move before it's made. They can't contend with someone who already knows the ending. And deep down, they whisper to themselves, maybe you don't belong here. Maybe you're something else. Maybe you're not just human. You're the shadow of every truth they've been trying to bury. And shadows, my friend, don't need permission to exist. They just stretch across everything. A table full of so-called professionals, men and women who pride themselves on reading others for a living. Analysts, strategists, observers, the ones trained to spot lies, decode motives, sniff out weakness. They've studied body language manuals thicker than Bibles, memorized micro-expressions, drilled in rooms with one-way mirrors. They live to dissect people. And then you walk in. You don't talk much. You don't posture. You just sit, silent, watching. And within minutes, the air shifts. Why? Because they realize they're not studying you. You're studying them. And worse, you're winning. The way their pen taps on the table, the hesitation in their laugh, the twitch when their story slips. You catalog it all like you've been doing it since birth. You don't need a manual. You don't need charts or graphs. You've got something they can't teach. Instinct sharpened by fire. The kind of instinct that doesn't come from classrooms, but from scars. And here's the cruel part. You don't even reveal what you see. You just let them squirm. Because the silence after someone realizes they've been read is louder than any accusation. They start fidgeting, over-explaining, backpedaling, telling on themselves without you ever opening your mouth. That's when one of them breaks. They lean back, fold their arms, try to laugh it off. What, you some kind of psychic? But behind the smirk is fear. Because they know psychics are frauds. You aren't. You don't predict. You confirm. You mirror their own secrets back at them without saying a word. And in that moment, even the most seasoned experts, even the so-called best of the best, have to whisper a question they never thought they'd ask. Who trained this one? Where did they come from? But the truth, nobody trained you. The world did. Pain did. Betrayal did. And that kind of training, no academy, institution, or empire on Earth can replicate it. That's why you're dangerous. Not because you know the playbook, because you are the playbook they never studied. You know what rattles people most? It's not power, not money, not even force. It's exposure. The moment someone feels seen, naked, stripped of their little lies, their polished masks, their curated identities, they crumble. And that's your gift. You don't look at people. You look through them. See, most people survive on illusion. They wear smiles stitched over insecurity. They project confidence while their hands shake under the table. They brag about loyalty while plotting their exit in silence. And the sad truth, most of the world lets them get away with it. Fake is the currency everyone accepts, but not with you. Because when your eyes land on someone, they panic. They know you're not buying the performance. You're counting the skipped beats, the nervous ticks, the cracks in their sentences. You don't hear their words. You hear the fear behind the words. You don't notice the mask. They notice the way your silence burns holes in it, and it terrifies them because it means they can't hide, not from you. Not anymore. That's why they whisper your name like a rumor. That's why corridors go quiet when you pass. That's why behind closed doors, they call you things they'd never dare say to your face. Ghost, phantom, observer, enigma. And here's the part they'll never admit out loud. Deep down, they want your approval. As much as they flinch under your gaze, as much as they fear being analyzed, a small, pathetic piece of them wants you to nod, to say, I see you, and you're solid. But you rarely do, because you know the truth. Most aren't solid. Most are hollow. Most would fold the second real weight hits their chest, so you leave them with silence. And that silence, it follows them home. It crawls into their thoughts. It makes them rehearse excuses in front of the mirror, wondering if you saw too much. It makes them paranoid, scanning every room like you're still there, peeling them apart to layer by layer. And that's when the legend grows. Not because you shouted, not because you fought, but because you sat in silence and they drowned in it. The whispers don't stop, do they? They move from the boardroom to the back alley, from private calls to group chats, from fake laughs to hushed panic. Because once someone realizes you see them, they can't unfeel it. You become the itch under their skin, the shadow in their periphery, the echo they can't silence no matter how loudly they speak. And then it escalates. Rumors turn into files, notes get passed. Your name starts appearing where it doesn't belong, inside folders marked confidential, on lips that usually don't repeat anything twice. Because here's what happens when you read people so clean. The world starts wondering if you're trained, prepared, or built for something greater than this life. And that's the legend blooming. The idea that maybe you're not just sharp, maybe you're wired differently. Maybe there's a program, a secret curriculum, some hidden training ground where people like you are molded. Because nobody believes someone could see that much on instinct. Nobody believes a human could strip someone bare without saying a word. So they create their own stories to explain you. Intelligence asset, strategic operative, exceptional talent. They need those explanations because the alternative, that you're just different, terrifies them more. Because if you're natural, if you were simply born like this, then that means you can't be replicated. You can't be bought. You can't be trained against. You're not a tool. They're used to tools. You're a storm, and storms can't be contained. Behind closed doors, they debate you like a classified situation. One side says you're dangerous. The other says you're an opportunity. But nobody says you're ordinary. That word doesn't even fit you anymore. And the irony? You never asked for this reputation. You never filed the paperwork, never signed your name on their forms. All you did was sit in silence and notice what others ignored. That's why your story is traveling faster than you do. You're not just a person anymore. You're a case study, a rumor, a tale dressed in truth. And every time someone drops your name, it's half in fear, half in reverence. Because they know the truth now. You don't just read people, you reshape the entire energy of the room. It starts subtle. A glance exchanged across the room, a pause in someone's sentence when you walk in. But then it grows. Whole conversations shift when your name comes up. People stop mid-laugh, mid-insult, mid-lie, because they don't know if you'll overhear. And even if you're not there, the idea of you is. That's the power of a myth. It doesn't need you present. It travels without you, lingers in spaces you'll never step foot in. It makes them rehearse their words before they speak, makes them second-guess their own memories, wondering, what did you notice? What did you catch? What did you leave unsaid? And somewhere, in rooms filled with influence, your name is being dissected. They whisper about the way you read people like books missing their covers. They argue about your methods like you're a living experiment. Some say you're trained. Others swear you were simply born with it. But all of them, they're unsettled. Because if you can strip strangers bare, what happens when you look their way? And this is where it gets deliciously unnerving. The myth mutates. Some claim you sense deception in the air. Some claim your silence is a test, a pressure chamber where only the guilty falter. Some even say once you lock eyes with someone, they can't see the world the same again. And the wildest part, you don't deny any of it. You let the stories breathe. You let the paranoia deepen, because the truth is their fear builds your fortress. Their whispers carve your throne. Here's the twist that keeps them pacing at night. Your myth isn't confined to whispers anymore. It's not just late-night chatter or hushed exchanges in dim-lit hallways. It's alive, moving through their minds, pressing on their conscience when the lights go out. Because once someone feels truly seen by you, they don't walk away the same. Think about it. Most people spend their lives hiding their fears behind bravado, hiding their betrayals behind smiles, hiding their insecurities behind noise. And then you arrive, holding up a mirror with nothing more than silence, and suddenly they are forced to confront themselves. That's what unsettles them. Not you, them. You just let them see. That's why they can't shake your presence. Why meetings have your name scribbled in the margins. Why your presence spreads like wildfire through rooms they thought were safe. They're not afraid of what you'll do. They're afraid of what you reveal. Because when truth enters a room, illusions crumble, status falters, and the loudest voices go silent. And you don't lift a finger. Here's the part that twists them the most. You never weaponized it. You never shouted, "I know who you are." You never tossed their missteps back in their faces. All you did was notice. All you did was see. And that quiet observation, it cuts deeper than any accusation. Silence lets their own guilt echo, louder than any words ever could. Now your presence is the verdict. Your silence is the sentence. Your gaze is the scalpel, cutting away every illusion they built. And the world is noticing. Some call it instinct, others call it intelligence. But those who felt it, they don't name it. They only remember the way their breath caught, the way their confidence faltered, the moment the mask fell, and they knew someone had already seen through them. And that's why your story has already outgrown you. Not a tale of dominance, not a tale of brute strength, but a tale of the one person who walked into rooms full of liars and, without raising a hand, made every mask fall. And so here we are, the final act, the part where your story breaks free from flesh and bone and steps fully into legend. Because let's be honest, people like you don't just live, they imprint. They become warnings, inspirations, case studies, nightmares, depending on who's telling the story. Behind closed doors, in rooms you'll never sit in, your name is spoken like a password, not shouted, not mocked, whispered, careful, reverent, because nobody wants to risk summoning the presence that unsettled them once, and yet they can't stop. They replay that look, that silence, that razor-edged calm that cut deeper than any outburst ever could. The agencies, the analysts, the so-called experts, they can debate methods, label you a phantom, a psychological anomaly, an outlier. But those who've felt it, who've sat under the weight of your eyes, they don't need labels. They already know. Not trained, not programmed, not recruited. Something far worse, something real. Because training has limits. Programs can be replicated, systems can be dismantled, but you're not a system. You're a storm in human form. You can't be copied. You can't be bought. You can't be contained. That's what terrifies them most, that your power comes from a place they'll never reach. So your story spreads, not in headlines, but in heartbeats. Not in records, but in whispers. Not in the noise of crowds, but in the silence of rooms where your name alone makes liars flinch. And that's when you realize you don't need recognition. You don't need applause. History doesn't remember the loud. It remembers the unforgettable. And you are unforgettable. Not because you demanded it, not because you screamed for it, but because you carried truth like a weapon, loaded, precise, lethal, and never once had to pull the trigger. So let them debate. Let them fear. Let them try to explain. While they drown in paranoia, you walk forward untouched. Because the legend isn't in what you did. It's in what you made them feel. And feelings, unlike records, never fade. Your name has already been written in the shadows. And from the shadows, legends never die.